So now that we have our pay period set up and we have our uh, 3 tickets to process within that pay period, and actually we'll just look at them once again. Now notice, because I have just one pay period set up in the system, the software auto selects it and it shows me all the tickets, all my 3 tickets. Now, once I have more than one pay period set up, this auto selection is not going to occur anymore. You're going to need to drop your little drop down list down here, and then you'll see all of your pay periods that you've set up and have left as active periods. So in any event, we are now ready at long last to get the software to calculate our pay owing on those tickets and to automatically produce our vendor settlements for us. So this calculator menu item here, it's got a few different calculators available, and we're going to focus for this session on the vendor calculator. And again, vendor is anybody that's a payee that is not an employee. So in our case, we're going to be paying the landowner, Stella Estates, and we're going to be paying the 2 trucking companies that we have, Jack's Trucking and Lyle's Trucking. So I'll go ahead and select the vendor full calculator, and I'm going to hit OK. And what the software is going to do is it's going to cycle through all 3 of our tickets that exist within that pay period. So the tickets whose dates lie within the 9th to the 15th. And it's more specifically the tickets pay dates as opposed to delivery dates. Now, I didn't emphasize that when I was doing my ticket entry. Instead, I allowed my date for pay to simply default to the ticket entry date. We'll cover in another video training session how you can move your date for pay into whatever cycle you want, so that if a good old truck driver shows up with a late ticket in his hand, he's not out of luck. Okay, so the calculators have done their work, and look at that. I have 2 errors. What the heck did I do wrong? I'll say that you're going to come to have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the calculators. You love them because they ride herd on you and they catch your mistakes. But there are going to be times where you might not love them so much if their messages are hard to decipher. And interestingly, this one is one of the, I'll say, less frequent errors that come up. A lot of the errors just say, pay rate not found for this ticket. And then you have to go hunt down why, what is the ticket, what did you enter on the ticket versus what did you enter at the tract level when you set up your pricing. Now, my error is a little different than that, and it's good. We'll walk you through how to interpret these, and we'll go fix whatever it is that I've done wrong. So it's telling us that I have a pay rate for a load that is, the rate itself is greater than 0, but the weight on the load is 0. So the software also tells us the ticket number in here somewhere, I thought. Yes, here we go. So it's ticket 32584. That's the problem. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here. If I right click, well, actually, let me say one more thing. So it's telling me that both of these errors relate to the same ticket. And one of the errors is coming up when the software is trying to calculate the stumpage payment. And the second error is coming up when it's trying to calculate the trucking. So if I right-click, highlight and right-click one of the error rows, I have a few different options. And one of them is I could go right straight to the pay rates, but that's not really my problem. The problem is it's telling me that my pay weight for the load is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and click View Load, and it will bring up my ticket, and lo and behold, I obviously didn't enter a weight when I entered this ticket. So I need to correct that problem. And let's say that this ticket was 24.75 tons. So notice that I need to address my decimal places, and that's something that any good configuration person would do in advance for you once they knew that you were going to be entering your weights in tons as opposed to pounds. So that's something that Caribou needs to do behind the scenes so that your precision of your data entries remains. So, but anyway, that was the reason that the software gave me my error. So I'll go ahead and click OK here. And now, when I'm in my error grid, I can just hit this little green play button, and that will rerun the calculators for that period. And lo and behold, my errors are fixed. So now that we have a clean run of our pay calculators, which is very important, you never want to issue settlements if you have any remaining pay errors. But we cleaned all of ours up, and so now it's time to go and look at the handiwork of those calculators, which is to look at the statements that were created automatically during that calculator process. So to get to the statements, I can either use the reports menu item and go to the vendor statements, but I'll look at it by pay period, or I could have just used this icon over here. Either one will work. And I've only processed the one pay period, of course, so that's all I'm seeing. But as you process more and more pay periods, the older ones will just show up down here, period by period, and you can always, go and grab one of those if you need to look up something from a few periods ago. So I'll just go ahead and highlight the one I want and click OK. You'll notice that the first statement that we're looking at is Jack's Trucking, and Jack was paid for 2 of the 3 tickets because he was the one that delivered 2 of the 3, but it was Lyle's Trucking Company, as you recall, that delivered the 3rd ticket. So his statement just has the 1 ticket on it, and then Stella Estates has the all 3 tickets, where the statement by default is subtotaling, giving a subtotal for each destination. So I've got 2 tickets that went to the Rayonier Jessup mill, and then the last ticket went to the West Fraser Fitzgerald mill, and then I'm getting a subtotal down here for the entire tract, Stella Estates, and finally a subtotal for stumpage. Now, the more tickets you have, the more the more that this is going to look visually sensible. Right now, I've got a number of subtotals stacked up here. Your configuration specialist and trainer can control the settlement subtotaling, at least to some degree. And there's also the ability within the system to create different, I'll say, statement layouts for your truckers, for example, your contract truckers versus your landowners. For example, maybe your landowner, you don't want to bother them with even seeing the truck column, but for your truckers, maybe you want to make sure that they do see the truck column, and perhaps you might even want to include a driver column in there for them if you are capturing their driver's name as a courtesy. And perhaps you even want the subtotaling for them to occur based on the driver first, and then within that, the destination. So the system does have some flexibility on that front. And the other thing that I want to point out to you while I'm in here is, first of all, there's a summary button here that will allow you to view the grid where you've got one row per payee with the pay before any advances might have been removed, and then the final pay if you are doing an advance collection. And you can actually, if you want, enter your check number that you are going to issue to the tune of that amount, and put any little comments in that you might want to put in. This posted flag over here, you could also see it at the bottom of each statement. And I should mention actually that when you enter your check number in your comments, you really should do it in this screen. And then, when you click OK, the software will make sure to save that information. So the posting concept is something that we'll talk about more in a different training session, but we definitely encourage users when they are at the point of issuing the checks to post each of their statements, which essentially locks down the statement itself, but also the tickets associated with that statement. So again, we definitely encourage users to lock it down, because you don't want to accidentally rerun, say, an old calculator, and heaven forbid you've edited some rate rather than creating a new rate with a new effective date. And if you accidentally rerun an old calculator where you've edited a date rather than doing that new date, new effective date protocol, well, then your settlement information all of a sudden in the system could differ from what you issued on your check. So again, that's why we encourage users to do this posting process. The last thing I want to show you in here before I wrap this video up is to show you that we can actually print a different settlement, I'll say, format, and I'm not going to send it to my printer by hitting print. Instead, I'm going to click OK so that the software will create the settlements on screen for me. The settlements that are coming up now are still standard within the software. They do still have, a little bit of configuration capabilities, but the distinction with them is that there is a cover page for each payee, followed by the detail pages. And you probably can't quite see where I'm clicking, but up in the top left corner, there is a arrow that lets you go to the right, and then back to the left. So this settlement has two pages: cover page, followed by the page that lists out the ticket by ticket detail. This, there's another little arrow again, which you can't see, that is to the right, bottom right of your screen, and it allows you to move to the next subsequent vendor statement. And here, I will say that most users, if they're paying trucking companies, they kind of prefer the grid layout, because a lot of times you can get it to just fit on one page. It's nice and simple, looks a lot like just an Excel printout without grid lines. But for your landowners, I will say that most of our clients like to have this layout where once you set up, I didn't take you through this, but you can put your own, company information, company name and address and contact information, and that will show up here. And then if we had put in all the full address information for Stella Estates, that would appear here. And again, you'll have the cover page showing the check amount, And then top left, I'm moving to the detail page where they can see each of their tickets. So it's a nice professional looking statement that is generally very easy for the landowners to follow. And wasn't it nice not to have to do all of this in Excel? So at this point, you've seen at least the kind of start to finish process with the software, and there's just so much more to teach you, but I know that we can't teach it all in one session. So in any event, I hope this has been informative and that it gets you at least off to the races to do a little bit of ticket entry yourself.